Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about backgrounds in comics. It might seem kind of silly to separate backgrounds from characters because it's all just drawing, but I do think there's value in discussing backgrounds specifically because they have their own challenges. So today I'm going to talk about setting and perspective and level of detail in drawing backgrounds in comics. So today I'm working on page 6 of my comic. The setting for this page is a port in Honduras where Louise has her business selling bananas to merchants who work for banana companies. In particular, she's talking to someone in this scene from New Orleans, which we'll get to that on the next page. But I thought this would be a good example for discussing comics because it's a full splash page and we see a lot of the setting in this particular page. I got the idea for the setting of this page from a quote I read doing my research. This is from a book called Banana Cultures by John Soluri, who's a professor at Carnegie Mellon. He said the matter of national sovereignty came down to the distance from the beach to the ship's deck, which I thought was really powerful. He's talking about how banana companies did their business in Honduras, and this also happened in some other Latin American countries. But particularly in this case, he's talking about how the banana companies would do their dealings with merchants and basically try to get favorable business dealings at the expense of people who were selling to them. So, the really challenging part of drawing this scene was creating this setting. I tried looking up lots of photos of what a shipyard would look like in the early 1900s. Um, and I can find photos from other places, but not particularly in Honduras. And so I I pieced together a lot of different reference images to create this image. I wanted to give the feel that we're on the water, and by showing the ships and showing the water, and then also having the banana stalls to show that this is the main business here at this port. This kind of leads me to my next point I wanted to talk about, which was perspective. As you can see, none of these reference images match the perspective I have here exactly. I basically had to wing it and use my best judgment. I think that the perspective is not perfect, but I don't think that matters too much. Personally, particularly with backgrounds, I just want to get my point across. And I want it to look good, of course, but I'm not going to stress too much over it being perfect. So I was basically winging it here, but I think there are some fundamental things about perspective that are actually easy to break down. It can be a intimidating topic, but I mean the gist of it is things are bigger when they're closer to you, and the distance between things like windows, or in this case the stalls, they get closer together the farther you get away. And then you want to make sure you have your lines showing the perspective going the right direction, which it's always best to have reference, I think. And like I said, it's not perfect, but I've learned what I have about perspective from this really great YouTuber. His name is Stephen Travers Art, and I highly recommend his channel. He draws architecture, and his videos are really cool, and it helped me a lot to just not feel intimidated by drawing backgrounds. So I recommend that. So, another thing I think it's important to think about when drawing backgrounds is the level of detail you want to show. Personally, I really love abstract backgrounds. I don't love getting lost in the details. It's not my favorite part. So, I try to show the bare minimum amount that I need to convey what I'm trying to show. In this case, there was a ton of bananas, which was a lot of detail. But if you actually look at those bananas, there's not that much detail in there, and that's something I learned from Stephen Travers. Is you have to give a impression of detail more than you need to draw every little single thing about everything in the background. So that's something I've learned, and I think it's an important art skill to be able to vary your level of detail throughout your drawing. You want your focal point to be the most detailed, but things in the background, you really just need to give an impression that they're there, an impression of detail. There's one more thing I want to touch on in this video, which is color. Um, Drawing digitally is relatively new to me, and I think having every color of the rainbow can be very difficult to work with in the beginning. So um, I decided I was going to find a reference for the colors of this page and this scene, and I chose a comic called Helen of Windhorn. The artist is Bill Keys Evely, and I can put her name here on the screen. Um, I chose this comic because I liked the colors, and it made me feel like I was in the past. And so, since there's multiple timelines going on in my story, I thought it could be helpful to make the color palette for what's happening in the past pretty different than what's happening in current times. And so I brought in those colors, and I adjusted it somewhat, but I brought in those colors as a starting point for this page. The backgrounds in Helen of Windhorn are particularly beautiful, so I recommend you checking that out. And stick around, I'll be right back in a minute to show the coloring process. I was actually working on this page while I was watching a stream by Color with Kurt, and I took a few tips from that stream that I would like to share here. So, one is on your page, it's really important to create a focal point, and you can do that with high contrast. So, it's really important to put your image in black and white and see and make sure that your darkest darks and your lightest lights are right against each other at the focal point. And so, you can see I have Louise in a very light colored outfit and she has really dark skin. So that creates the most contrast in the drawing. And so at some point, I realized the background was competing with her. And so I darkened the entire background so that she popped a bit more. Another tip I learned was from his stream was you want to make sure there's not any lines competing with your focal point, especially near the face. So I actually erased some of the lines right by her face, which I think helps her pop as well. And then the last thing was it's okay to put color over your ink to kind of put it further in the background. So if you look at the ship that's farthest away, I actually put some a layer over that line work, and it pushes it even farther to the background to add some more depth. So I think all these tips were super helpful to add a little bit more to this page. Well, that's about it. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it was informative into how I do things and maybe helpful for you as well. I'm going to be posting more of these videos, so stick around if you'd like to see how this scene plays out with Louise negotiating with Banana Merchant. Check out my Substack as well. And thank you again for watching.